The fork scrapes against the ceramic plate like nails on a chalkboard. Marcus hears it before he registers the sound, that specific screech that makes every head turn just slightly. His 8-year-old son, DeAndre, sits across from him in the cracked vinyl booth at Rosselli's Diner on Clinton Street in Newark, moving the meatloaf around instead of eating it. The kid's tired. They both are. It's a Thursday night, and Marcus has 6 hours before the overnight shift at the warehouse, but right now, all he wants is to sit here, breathe, and pretend the electricity bill doesn't exist. The diner smells like grease and floor wax. The kind of place where waitresses remember your name but forget your coffee order, where the jukebox plays something from 2003, and where nobody makes eye contact unless they have to. Marcus likes it that way. There's honesty in a space like this. No pretense. No lies about making it. Just people in the margins, eating cheap and moving on. That's when he notices her. She sits alone at the corner booth, 3 tables down and across the narrow aisle. A woman with her shoulders squared tight, the kind of posture that doesn't relax even when she thinks nobody's watching. Her denim jacket is faded, the real kind of faded, not the manufactured kind from stores. Her sleeves are rolled up to the elbow, and Marcus can see scars on her forearms. Small ones. Old ones. The type a person doesn't get from normal accidents. She lifts her water glass, and her hand trembles just enough for Marcus to catch it. Exhaustion. Trauma. Maybe both. That's the thing about single parents, they recognize each other instantly, like members of a club nobody chose to join. She has a daughter. No older than 6. The girl colors on a napkin with a crayon from her jacket pocket, completely absorbed in whatever world she's drawing. The mother watches her with an intensity that makes Marcus understand something immediately: this woman would burn the world down for that child. He sees it in the way her jaw sets, the way her eyes track anyone who looks in their direction just a moment too long. Marcus glances at DeAndre, then back at the woman. Yeah. He knows that feeling. Hey. I'm really glad you're here. Be honest, have you eaten today? What did you have? Tell me that, your location, and the time. And if you're new, help me prove something wrong. My mother said drill stories would never reach 10,000 subscribers, but stories like this deserve to be heard. So don't leave without subscribing. It feels empty when you come in and leave without saying a word. Now, let's continue. The noise comes from the other side of the diner. Laughter. The kind of laughter that fills too much space, that demands attention from everyone who hears it. Marcus has worked enough overnight shifts to recognize the sound immediately: a man in an expensive blazer, the kind that probably costs more than Marcus's monthly rent, sitting with 2 friends who laugh a little too hard at his jokes. They occupy the center booth, the good one by the window, the one the regulars know to never request. The man is broad-shouldered, red-faced, the type of face that hasn't heard the word no in longer than he can remember. His voice is loud. Another round of those wings. And tell your girl to move faster. The waitress, Crystal, a woman in her 60s who's worked here for 20 years, nods and turns toward the kitchen. She's used to it. The kind of used to it that comes from survival, not acceptance. That's when the man stands. Marcus feels DeAndre's hand squeeze his arm. The kid senses it too. That shift in air pressure when something's about to break. The man walks toward the kitchen, but he doesn't go straight. He stops at the corner booth. The one with the single mother and her daughter. You were here after we were, he says. His voice isn't loud anymore. It's something worse. It's controlled. Deliberate. Why did she take your order first? The woman looks up from her water. She doesn't seem surprised. She seems ready. Like she's been waiting for this moment her whole life, and finally, here it is. I'm not sure, she says carefully. There might have been a mix-up. A mix-up. The man repeats the words like they taste bad. You think you're better than us? The little girl stops coloring. Her crayon goes still in her hand. Marcus's chest tightens. He's been here before. Not in this diner, but in situations just like this one. Moments where a man with money and certainty decides to teach someone a lesson. Moments where doing nothing feels like a choice, and choosing feels impossible. The man leans forward, his hand reaching toward the mother's shoulder. And that's when Marcus sees something shift in her face. A change so subtle that most people wouldn't catch it. Her breathing patterns shift. Her left foot plants at a different angle. Her eyes stop focusing on his face and start focusing on something beyond him, his center mass, his exits, his angles. He reaches for her again. And Marcus realizes with absolute certainty that whatever happens next, nobody in this diner is prepared for it. The man's hand is still in the air when everything stops mattering except what comes next. His hand reaches across the table, and that's when her daughter notices. The child's small fingers freeze mid-crayon stroke, the purple line she was drawing halting against the napkin. Her eyes follow the man's arm the way prey animals follow predators, not with understanding, but with instinct. She knows something's wrong before her brain can process why. The woman doesn't flinch. She sets down her water glass with the kind of deliberate control that tells Marcus everything. This isn't the first time a man with power has invaded her space. This isn't the first time she's had to manage someone else's anger in a public place while her child watches. "Sir," she says quietly. Her voice doesn't waver. "You're standing in my booth." The man, Marcus catches the name Brock from one of his friends calling across the diner, laughs. It's the kind of laugh that belongs to someone who's never been told no. He pulls out the bench seat across from her without asking, without waiting, and drops his weight into it like he owns the space. He does own the space, in his mind. Men like Brock always do. "What's your name?" he demands. She doesn't answer. Instead, she pulls her daughter closer, positioning the child on the inside of the booth, her own body now a barrier between the man and her kid. Marcus watches this happen in real time. He's done similar things himself, small repositioning movements that announce to your child that protection is now the priority. That comfort comes second. DeAndre tugs his father's sleeve. "Dad. Why is he?" "Eat," Marcus whispers. "Not unkind. Just necessary." Brock leans back in the booth, taking up more space than his body occupies. He's studying the woman now, the way someone studies a painting they're considering buying, evaluating her worth, her status, her right to be in this establishment. He probably notices the same things Marcus does. The boots that are worn at the heel. The wedding ring, or the absence of one. The way she moves like someone who's learned to take up as little space as possible, to be invisible in rooms where she has every right to exist. Single mom. Brock says it like it's a diagnosis. "I can always tell." Got that look. That desperate, holding on by a thread look. The woman's jaw tightens. Not from fear. From something else. Marcus recognizes it because he's felt it himself in 100 different moments, the moment when the choice becomes clear. Stay quiet and survive, or speak and risk everything. She's choosing survival. "For now. Please leave our booth," she says. Brock doesn't move. Instead, he signals toward the counter where Crystal is refilling someone's coffee. "Hey. When you get a chance, can we order? We've been waiting for 20 minutes. He pauses, then adds with pointed malice, "Unlike some people who don't have to wait at all." Crystal's shoulders tense. She knows what he's implying. She nods and heads back toward the kitchen, but not before she catches the woman's eye. There's something in that glance, recognition. Understanding. The knowledge that she's about to watch someone else get blamed for a system that doesn't favor either of them. The woman reaches for her purse on the seat beside her, a small worn leather bag that's been repaired in at least 3 places with black thread. "Come on, sweetheart," she says to her daughter. "We'll eat somewhere else." But Brock puts his hand on the table, blocking her exit. His fingers are thick, the nails clean and manicured, the hands of someone who's never had to work for a living in the physical sense. "You know what your problem is?" he says. "You think the world owes you something. You think because you've got a kid and you're alone, everyone's supposed to feel sorry for you. Well, I don't. I see a woman who made bad choices, and now she wants special treatment." The diner goes quiet. Not the normal diner quiet of background noise and ambient activity. The specific quiet of a space where something dangerous is being decided in real time. Marcus notices other diners looking up from their plates. An older couple 2 booths back. A construction worker at the counter. A teenage girl by the window. All of them watching. All of them choosing in this moment whether to pretend they don't see what's happening. The woman stands slowly. Her movement is measured, controlled, deliberate. Every inch of her body language shifts. It's like watching someone change channels. One moment she's been in survival mode, in compliance mode, in the mode that single mothers are trained to adopt in public spaces. The next moment, something else emerges. Her shoulders roll back. Her breathing deepens. Her feet plant on the worn linoleum floor at a specific distance from Brock's position. Her eyes stop looking at his face and start looking through him, past him, toward the kitchen door and the exit by the register. She's measuring distances. She's calculating angles. Brock doesn't see it. Men like Brock never do. They're too confident in their own power to notice when someone else's has shifted. "You gonna say something?" he sneers. "Or you gonna cry like most of you do?" The little girl grabs her mother's leg. "Mommy," she whispers. "I'm scared." And that word, scared, that singular word spoken by a child who's already learned that the world isn't safe, that adults aren't safe, that even in a public diner on a Thursday night in Newark, danger finds her, that word is what changes everything. The woman's hand moves toward Brock's shoulder. But Marcus realizes as he watches her, as he sees the way her body shifts, the way her stance widens, the way her entire presence transforms in the space of a breath, that this isn't about fear anymore. This is about something else entirely. If you're watching this right now, you need to understand something. What happens in the next moment will change everything about how you see strength. How you see single mothers. How you see what it means to protect the people you love when the entire world is watching and doing nothing. Don't scroll past this. Subscribe to Drill Stories right now. Turn on your notifications so you don't miss what comes next. And when you finish this chapter, I need you to do something for me. Go to the comments. Tell me, have you ever been in a situation where you saw something wrong and stayed silent? What stopped you from speaking up? Your story matters. Your experience matters. Because stories like Marcus's, like this woman's, like DeAndre's, they only change the world when we share them. When we stop pretending we don't see. So subscribe, comment, and let's prove my mother wrong together. Let's show the world that Drill Stories changes lives. Brock's hand is still in the air when her response comes. And it comes fast. Her hand doesn't shake when it comes up. She doesn't grab him. Doesn't point. Doesn't perform anger for the benefit of an audience. She simply places her palm against his shoulder, firm, measured, the kind of touch that communicates a boundary with absolute clarity. Remove your hand from the table. Now. Brock's face flushes crimson. Not the pink of embarrassment. The deep red of a man whose entire worldview has just been challenged by someone he's decided doesn't matter. He stands up from the booth, his chest puffing out, his voice climbing louder. "You don't talk to me like that. Do you understand who I am?" "I don't care," she says. The words hang in the diner like a physical object. Several people at nearby tables actually put down their forks. This is the kind of moment that breaks the script, where someone is supposed to apologize, to back down, to validate his importance and make him feel like the serious man he believes himself to be. She does none of these things. Brock steps closer to her. His friends have gone silent at their center booth. Crystal, the waitress, has paused mid-stride toward the kitchen, one hand still holding a water pitcher. The older couple has stopped eating. The construction worker at the counter has turned completely around on his stool. DeAndre squeezes Marcus's arm so hard his fingernails dig in, and Marcus doesn't pull away. He doesn't move at all. "You should show respect," Brock says, his voice low now, more threatening than when he was shouting. "You should show gratitude that a man like me even acknowledges your existence." She doesn't respond. She doesn't plead. She doesn't explain. She simply turns her body slightly, creating more space between herself and her daughter, a gesture so practiced it's almost invisible. Her daughter scoots further into the booth, away from the man. Brock takes another step forward. His hand comes up, not open, not threatening in any conventionally obvious way. Just a movement, an intrusion, a man reaching into space he has no right to occupy. And then he swings. The slap lands on her left cheek with a sound that stops time itself. It's not loud the way explosions are loud. It's sharp. Clinical. A singular crack that echoes through the diner like a gunshot fired in a confined space. The impact snaps her head to the side, and for just a fraction of a second, everyone in the restaurant sees what power looks like when it's exercised without consequence. But that's all it is. One moment. Because the moment after, her head comes back to center. She touches her cheek. Once. Her fingers come away without blood. Without tears. Without the breakdown that the script demands in moments like this. She just looks at him. The entire diner is airless. Phones come up. Someone near the back fumbles for their camera. The construction worker has risen to his feet. The older couple sits frozen, the woman's hand over her mouth. Crystal sets down her water pitcher with a trembling hand. DeAndre starts to cry. Not loudly. Just tears running down his face without sound, because at 8 years old, he understands something fundamental: when a man hits a woman in public, the world doesn't stop. The world keeps going. Adults do nothing. Rules don't apply to people with confidence. Marcus puts his hand over his son's head, pulling him close, and he feels the burning shame of his own paralysis. He's frozen. Just like everyone else. Brock grins. He's won. He's established dominance, and the diner full of witnesses has confirmed his status by doing nothing. He turns back toward his friends, his chest inflated, his face wearing the expression of a man who's done exactly what he needed to do. The woman's voice comes again. It's steady. Almost calm. Almost mechanical. Pick it up. Brock stops. He turns back around. What? The napkin your daughter was drawing on. You knocked it on the floor. Pick it up. He stares at her like she's spoken a language he doesn't understand. He stares at her like she's insane. Because what woman, what person, what breathing creature gets hit and then makes demands? What kind of person sees power exercised against them and responds by asking for something instead of crying? He laughs. Actually laughs. You're crazy. You know that? Pick up the napkin, she repeats. Her voice doesn't change. Her stance doesn't change. But something in her eyes, something ancient and trained and lethal, has changed completely. Brock turns away from her, shaking his head, muttering something to his friends about crazy women and single mothers and disrespect. He walks back toward his booth, dismissing her from his attention because he's already won the only victory he cares about. That's when the sirens arrive outside. Not police sirens. An ambulance. Someone in the diner must have called 911 immediately after the slap, and now the sound is growing louder, closer, about to pull up outside Rosselli's diner on Clinton Street in Newark on a Thursday night. The sound triggers something in everyone, a recognition that this is about to become official. This is about to become a crime. The woman sits back down in her booth. She pulls her daughter close to her chest. The child is trembling, but the mother is still. Completely still. She's looking at the window, at the red light starting to paint the glass, and her expression is the expression of someone who has already calculated what comes next. Who has already accepted it. Marcus looks at her, and he understands with absolute certainty that whatever she is, whatever she's done before this moment, it's coming out now. Because you don't move like that, think like that, or stay that calm after violence unless you've trained for it. Unless you've lived it. Unless violence is something you know how to navigate the way other people know how to navigate driving to work. The door to the diner opens. 2 paramedics step inside, looking for an injured person. But there's no visible wound. No one bleeding. Just a slap. Just humiliation. Just a woman and her child sitting quietly in a booth while the entire restaurant holds its breath. One of the paramedics looks confused. Who called 911? We got a report of an assault. Everyone's eyes land on the woman. She raises her hand slightly, like she's in school. I did. The paramedics exchange a look. The kind of look that means they've arrived for a call that doesn't match the scene. No blood. No visible trauma. Just a woman sitting calmly in a booth with a daughter who's stopped crying and is now watching everything with the wide-eyed focus of a child who's learned to catalog details for later use. Are you injured? The first paramedic asks. He's young, maybe late 20s, the kind of guy who still has enough optimism in his face to believe his job matters. It will fade. Jobs like his strip it away year by year. No, she says. But he committed assault. In front of witnesses. Brock's voice comes from across the diner, defensive and loud. I barely touched her. She was disrespectful. You can't disrespect people and expect. You slapped me, the woman interrupts. Her voice doesn't rise. Doesn't perform anger. Just states a fact the way someone reads ingredients off a package. My daughter saw it. Multiple other people saw it. I called 911 immediately to document it. The construction worker at the counter nods. He's still standing, still watching. The older couple has turned completely in their seats. Crystal the waitress has her phone out, though Marcus can't tell if she's recording or just considering it. The diner smells like grease and fear and the specific chemistry of a moment that's about to explode into something none of these people know how to handle. Marcus feels DeAndre's breathing slow against his chest. The kid stopped crying. He's watching. Learning. Absorbing. One of the paramedics pulls out his radio. Dispatch, we're at Rosselli's diner on Clinton. We have an assault situation. No medical intervention needed. Caller reported incident immediately. Requesting police unit. The second paramedic, a woman with gray at her temples and the face of someone who's seen every version of human cruelty, steps closer to the booth. She doesn't approach Brock. She approaches the woman. I need to document any marks, the paramedic says. For the report. The woman turns her head, revealing her left cheek. There's a mark there now. Not dramatic. Not Hollywood. Just the kind of mark that comes from a palm hitting skin with force, a slight redness, the beginning of what might become a bruise. The kind of evidence that disappears from photographs within hours but exists right now, in this moment, as proof. The paramedic photographs it. Clinical. Professional. Adding layers to the documentation that will follow. Brock's friends have gone completely silent. They're no longer at the center of the diner's attention. They've become backdrop. The woman has reframed the entire scene with a single phone call and the refusal to perform the role of victim in the way victims are supposed to perform it. Marcus watches her, and something in his chest tightens because he's starting to see something that he can't quite name. It's in the way she sits. The way her eyes have stopped looking at the paramedics and have instead started looking at the window, calculating something beyond what's visible. It's in the way her hands rest on the table, relaxed, but positioned. It's in the steadiness of her breathing, which hasn't accelerated even once since the paramedics arrived. She's not scared. She's not processing trauma. She's not cycling through the emotions that normal people cycle through when violence happens. She's managing. Like this is a situation she's encountered before. Like she knows exactly what comes next. The door to the diner opens again. Police this time. 2 officers in uniform, one black man in his 50s with 30 years of exhaustion written into his posture, the other a white woman in her early 30s who's still moving like someone who hasn't learned to be cynical yet. Her name tag reads Officer Patterson. The male officer, Officer Williams, according to his badge, scans the diner with the expression of someone about to step into a situation where he already knows how it's going to end. Single mother. Wealthy man. Public restaurant. The script writes itself. Who called? Officer Williams asks. The woman raises her hand again. The same gesture she made for the paramedic. Not apologetic. Not tentative. Just identifying herself as the person responsible for this call, this documentation, this moment. He assaulted me, she says. In front of my daughter. In front of all these people. Brock stands up immediately. Officer, this woman is lying. I barely tapped her. She was being disrespectful, and I needed to teach her a lesson about how things work. How the world actually works. Officer Patterson's jaw tightens. She's heard this before too. The entitlement. The justification. The phrase, teach her a lesson, like violence is an appropriate form of education. But she doesn't move toward him yet. She moves toward the woman first. Can you walk me through what happened? The woman stands from her booth. She moves with a fluidity that makes Marcus's breath catch. There's no stiffness from the impact. No favoring of one side. No movement that suggests pain or trauma. She walks to the center of the diner like someone moving through familiar territory, and she describes what happened with the kind of precision that belongs to someone accustomed to giving statements. Not emotional recounting. Fact recitation. Angles, timing, positioning, witness locations. She describes Brock's words. She describes his hand on her shoulder. She describes the escalation in his tone. She describes his hand coming up. She describes the impact. And then she says something that makes Marcus understand his previous confusion. I allowed him to make contact, she says. I didn't block or deflect. I wanted witnesses and documentation. Which is why I called immediately. Officer Williams's expression shifts. Officer Patterson is already looking at her differently now. Because what kind of person allows violence to happen to themselves so they can document it? What kind of person is capable of that kind of control? The answer is, the kind of person who's trained to handle situations that other people can't handle. The kind of person who moves through space differently. Who breathes differently. Who calculates distances and angles without appearing to do so. The kind of person who knows that in a situation like this, in a diner full of witnesses, in a moment where her word is being weighed against a man's, she needs physical evidence. She needs medical documentation. She needs the system itself to work in her favor, because she understands exactly how the system works. Marcus realizes his hands are shaking. Officer Patterson is writing something in her notebook. Officer Williams is looking at Brock with an expression that suggests he's beginning to understand that his initial assessment was wrong. That maybe the script doesn't write itself the way he thought it would. We're going to need statements from all of you, Officer Patterson says to the diner at large. Everyone who witnessed the incident. And that's when Marcus understands something else with absolute certainty, his life just became complicated. His silence just became a choice. His neutrality just became a position he's no longer allowed to maintain. The woman meets his eyes across the diner. Just for a moment. Just long enough for him to see that she sees him. That she knows he watched everything. That she's calculating whether he'll speak or whether he'll join everyone else in the comfortable space of pretending they saw nothing. Her daughter tugs her jacket. "Mommy, are we in trouble?" "No, sweetheart," she says. "We're not in trouble. We're just making sure the truth is recorded." But Marcus knows as he sits there, his hand still on DeAndre's head, that he's about to become a witness in a situation that's going to reveal exactly what kind of man he is. Whether he'll speak. Whether he'll matter. Whether his testimony will be the difference between justice and silence. He takes a breath. He picks up DeAndre. He walks toward the officers. And everything changes. Officer Patterson is writing Marcus's statement down when Brock decides he's done cooperating. He stands up from the booth where Officer Williams has been keeping him seated. He doesn't stand like someone accepting consequences. He stands like someone who's decided the rules don't apply. His face is red again, that specific crimson of rage mixed with the intoxicating belief that his status will protect him. "This is ridiculous," he says loudly. "I'm not sitting here while some broke single mom and her little pet cop try to ruin my reputation. I know people. Real people. People who matter." Officer Williams puts his hand up. Not to his weapon. Just a stop gesture. "Sir, we need you to sit back down." "No," Brock says. And then he does something that Marcus will replay in his mind for weeks afterward. He walks directly toward the woman, who is standing near the kitchen with her daughter behind her. He points his finger at her face. "You're going to regret this. Do you understand me? You're going to regret challenging me in public." Officer Patterson moves toward him. But she's not fast enough. The woman doesn't step back. Doesn't flinch. Doesn't perform fear or submission. She simply waits. And when Brock reaches for her arm, his hand coming out like he's about to drag her out of the diner, to physically assert his dominance, she moves. It's not fast in the way action movies are fast. It's something else entirely. It's precise. It's controlled. It's the movement of someone who has trained for exactly this moment 1,000 times. She pivots. Her hip drops. Her hand comes up under his reaching arm, and instead of pulling away, she meets him halfway. Her other hand finds his wrist. And then she does something that Marcus's brain can barely process, she uses his own momentum against him. His forward drive. His aggressive reaching. All of it becomes a vector she redirects. Brock's feet leave the ground. Not dramatically. Not the way a stunt performer would flip backward. Just a controlled transition where his center of gravity shifts and his body follows the laws of physics into a position it wasn't designed to occupy. He goes down onto his knee, hard, his arm twisted in a way that makes everyone in the diner understand immediately. He has a choice between accepting pain or accepting greater pain. He chooses to accept it. He screams. The scream is high-pitched. Shocked. The sound of a man who has never experienced his will being overridden by someone else's competence. Officer Patterson has her hand on her radio. Officer Williams is moving forward. The paramedics who were still in the diner are stepping back, their hands up, their eyes wide. But the woman doesn't escalate. She doesn't follow up. She doesn't press her advantage. She simply holds him in the position, controlling his arm, controlling his movement, while her daughter watches with the expression of a child who's just learned that her mother has superpowers. "I'm done," the woman says calmly. "He touched me. Again. In front of my child. Again. I'm releasing him now." And she does. She lets go of his wrist. She steps back. She moves in front of her daughter, creating space between Brock and the child, and she stands there with her hands at her sides, breathing normally, completely composed. Brock collapses fully to the ground, clutching his arm, his screaming turning into gasping sobs of pain and humiliation and the specific kind of shock that comes from discovering you're not as powerful as you believed. Officer Williams moves forward quickly, his hand on Brock's shoulder. Don't move. Don't speak. You're under arrest for assault. She attacked me. Brock screams. Did you see? She attacked me. But everyone in the diner just stares. Because what they saw was a man reach for a woman, and what they saw was a woman respond with the minimum necessary force to protect herself. What they saw was a complete reversal of the power dynamic that Brock had tried to establish. What they saw was training. Officer Patterson approaches the woman carefully. Not threatening. Just observant. Did you want paramedics to check your arm? For documentation. No, the woman says. I'm fine. I didn't sustain any injury. I saw what you did, Officer Patterson says quietly. How you responded. That wasn't a lucky move. That wasn't instinct. The woman doesn't answer. She doesn't confirm or deny. She just looks at the officer with an expression that's completely neutral. Are you military? Officer Patterson asks. Still no response. Just a slight shake of her head, which could mean anything. Could mean no. Could mean something more complicated than a simple denial. Officer Williams is cuffing Brock now, reading him his rights. Brock is crying, actually crying, as the reality of what's happening sets in. His arm is going to hurt. He's going to have bruises. He's going to have to explain this to people. His confidence is shattered. The construction worker at the counter raises his hand. Officer, I'll give a statement. I saw everything. This guy was aggressive from the start. The woman was completely justified. The older couple nods. Crystal the waitress is already talking to Officer Patterson, pointing out the angle where she saw the first slap, describing how the man escalated despite the woman's calm. The truth is assembling itself in real time, piece by piece, witness by witness. Marcus watches the woman with her daughter, and he understands something that the officers don't fully grasp yet. This wasn't random. This wasn't an accident. She allowed the first confrontation to happen. She positioned herself where witnesses would be. She called 911 immediately. She controlled the second confrontation so completely that Brock had no choice but to end up exactly where he is now, arrested, humiliated, physically broken. She engineered this entire moment. Officer Patterson is still watching her, and Marcus can see the wheels turning behind the officer's eyes. She's beginning to put the pieces together. The way the woman moved. The precision. The control. The complete absence of fear or trauma. The strategic documentation. What's your name? Officer Patterson asks. Rhea, the woman says. Rhea Calder. Officer Patterson writes it down, and something shifts in her face. A kind of recognition. Marcus doesn't understand what it means, but he can see that it means something. That the name means something. Are you here of your own volition? Officer Patterson asks carefully. Not the question she's supposed to ask. Something different. Something that suggests she knows there are layers to this situation that extend far beyond a slap in a diner. Yes, Rhea says. My daughter and I came for dinner. That's all. But Brock is being let out now, and as he passes the booth where Marcus is still standing, Brock's eyes lock onto his. There's something in that look, a desperate plea. A recognition that Marcus is the one person who can fix this. Who can say that the woman attacked without provocation? Who can undo the narrative that's being built around him? Marcus says nothing. He simply looks away. And Brock understands in that moment that he's truly alone. That no one in this diner is going to save him. That his power, his status, his confidence has all been revealed as illusion. Officer Patterson is still watching Rhea, and her radio crackles. The dispatcher's voice comes through with information that makes both officers go completely still. Unit 34, we just ran the name Rhea Calder. We're getting some red flags. Department of Defense records. Classified background. You might want to Officer Patterson's hand moves to her radio, cutting off the transmission. She looks at Rhea with an expression somewhere between awe and fear. And Rhea simply smiles. Just barely. Just enough to show that she's been waiting for this moment too. The radio cuts back on. Officer Patterson's jaw tightens. She looks at Officer Williams, then back at Rhea, then at the small child still standing behind her mother. The decision crystallizes behind her eyes in the space of a breath. Protocol. Procedure. The system activating itself around this woman like an immune response recognizing a foreign body. Rhea Calder, Officer Patterson says, and her voice has changed. It's no longer conversational. It's official now. I need you to turn around. I need to place you in custody for your own protection while we sort through this situation. On what charges? Rhea asks. That's the thing, Officer Patterson says. Right now? None. But we received flagged information during our database search. Department of Defense records with restricted access. And until we get clarity on your status, I can't release you into public custody. For safety reasons. Marcus feels something cold move through his chest. He's heard these words before. Not to him, but to people he's known. The words that precede disappearance. The words that mean the system has recognized you as a threat and is about to swallow you whole regardless of whether you've actually done anything wrong. You're not under arrest, Officer Williams says. He's trying to be kind, but kindness doesn't matter when the machinery has already started. But you'll need to come with us. For questioning. Rhea's daughter grabs her leg. Mommy, no. Rhea kneels down. Her movements are still controlled, still measured, even as her daughter's terror is climbing. Sweetheart, listen to me. Mommy did everything right tonight. Everything. I called the police. I followed the rules. I protected you. And now the police need to talk to me about some old things that don't matter anymore. But you're going to stay with this nice waitress, okay? Crystal, you'll keep her safe. Crystal nods immediately. She comes over and gently takes the child's hand. The girl is crying now, the kind of crying that comes from understanding that nothing is safe, that even doing everything right doesn't protect you from systems designed to protect people like Brock instead. Officer Patterson moves forward with handcuffs. Not aggressive. Just procedure. Just the system performing its function. These aren't arrest cuffs, she says. It's just for transport safety. Standard procedure. Rhea complies. She puts her hands behind her back. The cuffs click. She stands. Her daughter screams. Marcus's heart is breaking. Not for himself. Not for Rhea, who clearly knew this might happen. But for the child. For DeAndre, who's watching this unfold and learning exactly what happens when you do the right thing. When you stand up. When you call for help. You get arrested anyway. The diner door opens again. Not police this time. A man in an expensive suit, the kind that costs more than Marcus makes in 3 months. He's talking rapidly into his phone, and his expression is the expression of someone whose entire evening has been ruined by an unexpected complication. Brock's friend. His connection. His person who matters. The man hangs up his phone and looks at Officer Williams directly. I'm Brock Hensley's attorney. I've advised my client to remain silent pending formal charges. And I'd like to know the basis for transporting this woman to the station. Classified background, Officer Patterson says. She has flagged records with the Department of Defense. The attorney's face changes. Shifts. Recalculates. Marcus watches it happen in real time. The moment when a lawyer realizes he's about to be dealing with something much more complicated than a simple assault case. The moment when the usual plays don't apply. I need to know her status, the attorney says. Is she under arrest? Not at this time, Officer Williams says. Just for questioning. Then she can decline, the attorney says. She has the right to remain silent and to refuse voluntary questioning. Ria looks at the attorney. There's something in her expression, a kind of sad recognition. It's okay. I'll cooperate. I have nothing to hide. But Marcus understands in that moment that she's lying. Not about the assault. About having nothing to hide. She has plenty to hide. She's been hiding it her entire life. And now the system is going to pull it out of her, thread by thread, until the entire diner understands that whatever she was before, whatever she did in her past, it's going to be used against her no matter what she did tonight. She's driven away in a police car. Her daughter stays with Crystal, who's holding her while she cries. DeAndre is pressed against Marcus's side, his eyes wide, his understanding of how the world works officially shattered. Officer Patterson approaches Marcus. I need you to come to the station too. Give a full statement. Sign off on the witness documentation. Marcus nods. What else can he do? But as he gathers DeAndre, as he prepares to follow the officers to the station, he notices something happening in the diner. The other witnesses are dissolving. The construction worker suddenly decides he doesn't have time. The older couple says they'll come back tomorrow. Crystal can't leave the diner. By the time Officer Patterson turns around, the only people willing to speak on the record are Marcus and the paramedics. Everyone else has found a reason to vanish. Brock's attorney is still there, making phone calls. Making connections. Marcus watches the man work the room, watches him nod at Brock, still cuffed, still in pain, still waiting to be processed, with a gesture that says, "We're going to fix this." At the police station, things move differently. Officer Patterson takes Marcus into a small room with a recorder. She documents everything. The slap. Her response. The calculated way she controlled the situation. Her call to 911. Everything. You're absolutely certain she didn't initiate the second confrontation? Officer Patterson asks. Completely certain, Marcus says. He approached her. He was angry because the first confrontation didn't go the way he expected. She was standing there. He reached for her. She responded. That's it. Officer Patterson nods and turns off the recorder. Here's the thing nobody wants to acknowledge, she says quietly. Self-defense is legal. Proportional response is legal. But she's going to be on the wrong side of something much bigger than legality. What do you mean? Marcus asks. I mean her file just got flagged for Department of Defense review. That means lawyers beyond me are now involved. That means paperwork beyond this assault is going to start surfacing. That means this diner incident is about to get buried under the weight of everything she hasn't said. DeAndre falls asleep against Marcus's shoulder. The night deepens. Officers move back and forth through the station, and nobody comes to tell Marcus what's happening to Ria. Hours pass. He's not under arrest. He's not being held. But he's not being released either. At 2 a.m, Officer Patterson finally comes back. You're free to go, she says. But I need you to know something. The DOD is sending people in the morning. Federal agents. And once they get involved, normal procedure stops mattering. She's going to disappear into a system that operates by different rules. What did she do? Marcus asks. Officer Patterson looks at him like he's asked the wrong question. It's not what she did, Patterson says. It's what she knows. Marcus doesn't sleep. He drives home with DeAndre unconscious in the back seat, but when they reach the apartment on Bergen Street, Marcus doesn't carry his son to bed. Instead, he sits on the worn couch in the dark and stares at nothing for 4 hours. The apartment is small. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen that opens directly into the living room. The walls are covered with things that represent Marcus's attempt at being a father. A school photo of DeAndre from last year. A drawing the kid made of Marcus at work, rendered as a figure twice the size of a warehouse. A calendar with shift times marked in fading pen. This is what his life looks like. This is what he chose when he chose to keep his head down, keep his job, keep his son fed and safe and quiet. But tonight he understands something he's been avoiding for years. Keeping your head down isn't safe. Staying quiet isn't protection. It's complicity. It's the choice to let people like Brock decide how the world works. It's the choice to let systems like the one that detained Rhea operate without opposition. At 5 in the morning, he makes a decision. He calls Officer Patricia's direct line. She answers on the second ring like she hasn't slept either. "It's Marcus Williams," he says. "From the diner. I need to make another statement." "About what?" Officer Patricia asks. "About everything," Marcus says. "I want to document exactly what happened. Every detail. Everything Brock said. Everything the woman said. I want it on record. I want it documented. And I want it released to the Department of Defense review, because whatever's happening to her, they need to know she was the victim in this situation." Officer Patricia is quiet for a long moment. "You understand what you're doing? Brock Hensley's family has connections. Real connections. They can make your life difficult." "I'm already living difficult," Marcus says. "At least this way it means something." He takes DeAndre to his sister's house. Tells her to keep the kid for the day. Tells her he'll explain later. Then he goes to the precinct and spends 3 hours giving a detailed statement about everything that happened. He doesn't leave anything out. The way Brock escalated. The way Rhea remained calm. The way she clearly allowed the first slap to happen deliberately. The way the second confrontation was entirely Brock's choice. The way she responded with precision that suggested training. Officer Patricia records everything. She photographs his written statement. She adds notes in the margins about his credibility. By the time he leaves the station, her entire file has shifted. Instead of a simple assault case with unclear circumstances, it's now a documented pattern of escalation by Brock and documented self-defense by Rhea. But Rhea isn't at the station. She's gone. Taken somewhere by people in dark suits who didn't leave paperwork about their destination or their intentions. Officer Patricia confirms this in a whispered conversation while Marcus is leaving. "They came at 6 this morning," she says. "Federal agents. She went with them voluntarily. She didn't fight. She didn't ask for a lawyer. She just went. The next 3 weeks are strange." Marcus goes to work. He picks up DeAndre. He maintains routine. But he keeps checking local news websites and legal databases, watching for any information about Brock Hensley. About assault charges. About Rhea Calder. Nothing appears publicly. But things are happening in the background. He can sense it. Can see it in the way Officer Patricia gives him a nod when he sees her at the grocery store. Can feel it in the absence of information, which is its own form of communication. Then, on day 22, the news breaks. Not on major networks. Not immediately visible. But in the kind of reporting that surfaces when institutions are embarrassed and trying to bury stories in plain sight. Brock Hensley charged with assault. Brock Hensley's family connected to financial crimes. Brock Hensley's business dealings under federal investigation. Brock Hensley's carefully constructed reputation beginning to collapse. The charges are tied to the diner incident. The witnesses matter. The documentation matters. And somewhere in the layers of federal paperwork, Rhea's statement matters. Rhea's account of events matters. Rhea's cooperation with the investigation matters. But she doesn't appear in the news. She remains invisible. Protected by classification or by choice or by both. Marcus doesn't see her again. Not for months. But one evening, he's at Rosselli's diner with DeAndre, back to their Thursday ritual, when someone leaves an envelope on their table. Inside is a handwritten note. The handwriting is precise. Military precise. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for teaching your son that silence is a choice. Rhea. Marcus's hands shake as he reads it. He looks around the diner, but there's no one he doesn't recognize. She was there. She came to the diner. She left this note. And she's gone again before he can respond. DeAndre tugs his sleeve. Dad, is that from the lady? Yes, Marcus says. It is. Is she okay? DeAndre asks. Marcus reads the note one more time. I don't know, buddy. But I think she will be. The courtroom is smaller than Marcus expected. The case is sealed, which means the public gallery is restricted. Only key witnesses, legal representatives, and court officials are permitted inside. Marcus sits on a wooden bench that's been worn smooth by decades of people bearing witness to justice. Brock sits at the defense table with his attorney. He's lost weight. His skin has taken on a grayish cast, the color of someone whose future is crumbling in real time. His parents sit behind him, their faces carved from stone, their expressions communicating nothing except that they're prepared to spend unlimited resources protecting their son. Officer Patricia is called first. She testifies about the initial assault. She testifies about Brock's statement and his aggression. She testifies about the paramedics' documentation of the injury. She testifies about the body camera footage that captured Brock's entire pattern of escalation. The prosecution's case is methodical. Fact by fact. Statement by statement. The documentation that Rhea insisted upon is presented as evidence. The photograph of her cheek. The paramedics' report. The 911 recording where she calmly reports the assault. Then Marcus is called. He walks to the stand. Places his hand on the Bible. Swears to tell the truth. And then he testifies about everything he witnessed. The way Brock approached. The way he spoke. The disrespect in his voice. The dismissal. The judgment. The slap. The second confrontation. The way Rhea responded with restraint and precision. Brock's attorney tries to make him doubt his own memory. Tries to suggest that the diner was crowded and visibility was limited. Tries to plant the seed that maybe he misunderstood what he saw. But Marcus has rehearsed this. Not rehearsed like he's lying, but rehearsed like he's making sure his truth is clear. I saw what I saw, Marcus says finally. A man hit a woman in public. She called the police. She cooperated. And then the system punished her for doing the right thing. The courtroom goes quiet. Brock's mother makes a small sound. His father's jaw tightens. The judge makes a note. The case is presented. Brock's prior incidents are documented. 7 other women come forward with similar stories, situations where Brock escalated, where they didn't respond the way Rhea did, where they suffered consequences far worse. The pattern becomes undeniable. Brock is not a young man who made one mistake. He's a man who uses violence as a tool of control, and he's used it repeatedly because he's been protected every time by status and resources and family connections. The verdict takes 2 hours to reach. Guilty on all counts. Assault. Battery. Pattern of predatory behavior. The sentence is 6 years in prison. Not what Rhea might have received if she'd escalated her response. Not what she might be receiving even now if the federal investigation reveals what she knows. But a sentence nonetheless. A consequence. A recognition that power isn't absolute. After the verdict is read, the courtroom empties. Brock is led away. His parents follow, still silent, still composed, already beginning to calculate their next move. But in the hallway, Marcus sees someone. A woman in a federal marshal's jacket, standing near the courthouse exit. Dark skin. Short natural hair. Scars visible on her forearms below her rolled sleeves. She's wearing a badge that says Federal Investigator. She nods at Marcus once. Just barely perceptible. A gesture that says, I was there. I heard your testimony. I know what it cost. Marcus understands in that moment that Rhea wasn't just a victim in the diner. She was undercover. She was documenting something. She was investigating something much larger than Brock Hensley's entitlement. And she knew from the moment she sat down at that corner booth that the evening would end with violence. That she would allow herself to be hit. That she would orchestrate her own arrest so that the federal investigation would deepen. That she would disappear into classified work that nobody in the public world would ever understand. She sacrificed her visibility for justice. She sacrificed her safety for her daughter's future. She sacrificed her freedom for a system that might actually work. 3 months pass. Brock begins serving his sentence. His family's financial crimes start surfacing in independent investigations. The connections that protected him for so long begin revealing themselves as liability instead. Money laundering. Tax evasion. Connections to organized crime that go back decades. The diner remains open. Crystal still works there. Marcus and DeAndre still come on Thursdays. The booth where Rhea sat is never specifically designated as her booth, but somehow it always remains empty until Marcus arrives and chooses it. Officer Patricia becomes a liaison between the local police and federal investigators. She begins documenting cases of assault and self-defense with much greater attention to detail. She implements training for her precinct about the different ways that violence appears, and the different ways it should be prosecuted. She becomes the officer that victims know they can approach. DeAndre stops having nightmares. He starts asking questions about why his father speaks up in situations where other people stay quiet. Marcus finds himself explaining concepts to an 8-year-old that most adults refuse to consider. That silence is complicity. That doing the right thing often costs. That speaking truth sometimes requires destroying the comfortable spaces we've built for ourselves. One evening, Officer Patricia comes to the diner. She's off duty, just coming in for coffee, when she notices Marcus. She sits down in the booth across from him. I wanted you to know, she says quietly. The federal investigation is widening. Brock's connections go deeper than anyone initially understood. His family has been protected by federal agencies for years because of information they possessed about larger criminal enterprises. That's all changing now. What about Rhea? Marcus asks. She's in deep, Officer Patricia says. The kind of deep where surfacing isn't really an option anymore. But she's making a difference. The corruption she's documenting goes all the way up. It's going to take years. Maybe decades. But it's happening. Her daughter? Marcus asks. Safe, Officer Patricia says. In protective custody. Growing up knowing that her mother made choices that mattered. DeAndre is playing with the napkin dispenser, not really listening, but absorbing everything. Learning. Understanding that the world is more complicated than simple right and wrong, but that choosing right anyway is still the only choice that means anything. 18 months after the incident at Rosselli's diner, Marcus receives a letter. Not through the mail. Delivered by a courier who leaves it at his workplace during his shift, then disappears without waiting for acknowledgement. The envelope is unmarked. Inside is a photograph and a handwritten note. The photograph is of a little girl, maybe 7 years old now, standing on a beach somewhere Marcus doesn't recognize. She's smiling. She's healthy. She's alive in a way that suggests she's beginning to heal from the trauma of watching her mother be arrested. The note is in the same precise handwriting. She asks about you sometimes. She remembers the man who was kind. Who spoke when everyone else was silent. I wanted her to know that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about being terrified and acting anyway. Thank you for teaching her that. Thank you for teaching DeAndre that. The work continues. It will always continue. But because you spoke, the work means something. Rhea. Marcus holds the photograph and the note for a long time. He doesn't show them to anyone. He doesn't need to. He knows what they mean. He knows what they cost. He knows what they represent. He folds the note carefully and puts it in his wallet. He puts the photograph on the refrigerator, where DeAndre sees it every morning before school. "Who's that?" DeAndre asks. "That's the daughter of someone very brave," Marcus says. "Someone who did the right thing even when the right thing was impossible." "Like you did," DeAndre says. Marcus looks at his son. "Yeah, buddy. Like I did." The next Thursday, Marcus and DeAndre go to Rosselli's diner. Crystal sees them and brings water before they even sit down. The booth by the corner is empty, as it always is. But this time, Marcus doesn't sit there. He sits in the center booth. The booth where Brock sat. The booth where power used to rest. He orders the same meal. Meatloaf. Shared plate. Water. And he eats with his son and feels the weight of everything that's happened, everything that's still happening, everything that will continue to happen because one woman decided to stop running and one man decided to stop being silent. Outside, Newark continues. The streets are still difficult. Single parents are still struggling. Systems are still broken. But something has shifted. Something has changed. And maybe it's not enough. Maybe it will never be enough. But it's something. It's a beginning. And sometimes, late at night, when Marcus is alone in his apartment and DeAndre is asleep, he thinks about Rhea. He thinks about the daughter growing up knowing that her mother sacrificed everything for justice. He thinks about all the other women who came forward once Brock's pattern became undeniable. He thinks about the corruption that's still being unraveled. And he thinks about the power of one person choosing to speak. If you're watching this right now, you need to understand something fundamental. There are people in your life who are counting on your courage. Your children. Your friends. The strangers around you who are suffering silently. They're all waiting to see if you're going to be the person who speaks up, or the person who looks away. Rhea Calder was a single mother. Marcus Williams was a single father. They didn't know each other. But they changed each other's lives because one of them decided to act, and one of them decided to speak. What will you choose? Subscribe to Drill Stories. Turn on your notifications. Don't miss the stories that matter. And when you finish watching, go to the comments. Tell me about a time you spoke up. Tell me about a time you stayed silent and regret it. Tell me what courage looks like in your life. Because your story deserves to be heard. Because stories like Rhea's and Marcus's only change the world when we share them, discuss them, and commit to being the people who speak instead of the people who look away. This is Drill Stories. Where real stories inspire real change. And your voice matters.